an anthology, Coffee Hot. For those of you who are never seen me before, I am your hostess, Victoria Pont. I am the anthology editor, and I am here joined today by two of the lovely and wonderful authors in this anthology, Greer Thompson and Rebecca Croto. So I guess we can start by thinking, why a coffee and coffee shop anthology, right? What's so cool about that? And I guess I would say that what's so cool about that is that we all spend so much of our lives in coffee shops these days, especially writers, but readers and just about anyone you know. It's like, let's go for coffee. Let's go to the coffee shop. How many of us go to bars? How many of us go to coffee shops? How many of us meet people there, have meetings there, or first dates there? It's kind of a ubiquitous part of our lives. And that's coming over a long period of history as well. People used to go to the bar, and then society changed when we went from go to the bar to go to the coffee shop, because coffee shops are where you think more and you think harder, and instead of having your brain get all muddled, it gets more sharp, like my speaking is not right now. So that is a quick and brief thought about why Coffee Hot is all about erotica set in coffee shops, or with coffee. And I would love now to introduce our amazing guests, but I think I'm going to force them to introduce themselves. So I am going to start with Greer Thompson, who is going to wait for me to make this Google Hangout work. Apologies to anybody who knows more about Google Hangouts than I do. So, hi, Greer, tell us about you.
Hey, so I'm Greer Thompson. I wrote His Name Was Pumpkin Spice for the anthology, which was born of my love of pumpkin spice coffee, because I'm every cliche tied together in one person. I live in Seattle, where it is sunny for approximately 6 seconds every year. This was my first romance and erotica submission ever, and it was very cool that it got selected. And it was a sci-fi piece, and yeah, so that's a short introduction of me, and we should pass it off to someone else.
All right. I'm going to make this all about Rebecca next. Tell us about you and your story a bit.
Hi. I live in Vermont, where it's incredibly humid, as you can tell by my unfortunate hair. I have been writing romance and erotica specifically for a couple years now. My first published erotica story was actually in another Circlet anthology, so I basically spend a ridiculous amount of time browsing the requests for anthologies on the website, and when I saw the coffee anthology go up, I was like, there is no way I cannot submit to this. I have a really fond place in my heart for coffee, to the point that my kids have, my older daughter has stopped my younger daughter from talking to me before I've had my morning coffee, and she'll just say, it's better for both of us, just wait. So it was definitely something I wanted to do, and I played with a more sci-fi theme in Flavor Profile of a Smuggler, because I hadn't written sci-fi in a really long time. And when I came across the idea of someone smuggling coffee, I couldn't come up with any reason why they would be doing that now. So I set the story on a sci-fi futuristic space station, because why not? And it was fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to make you guys answer some questions. I'm going to start with a really softball one, and I'm going to start with you, Rebecca, because you're already up on the screen, which is, so how do you like your coffee?
I'd like to say that I drank my coffee black. I feel like I should say that, but no, it's not even close to true. There's a ridiculous amount of milk and cream, or milk and sugar in my coffee at all times.
Well done. All right, Greer, your turn. How do you like your coffee?
I like it black and decaf if I can get it, just drip coffee, but no one in Seattle serves this, ever.
Really?
So, yeah, like you can get decaf Americanos, but no one does decaf drip, except for maybe Starbucks, which I haven't been into in like a year. So when I can't get that, I usually get mochas, or if it's in season, pumpkin spice lattes, because again, walking cliche. generally with rice milk or almond milk because my life is great. But yeah, I don't drink it a lot, but I really enjoy it when I do.
And I guess I always get my coffee with a lot of nice, hot, smooth milk, which tells you something about me as well, I guess. Speaking of questions that I could be asking people, if you are watching this broadcast live, that means that you are welcome to ask lots of questions on the chat section, and I will attempt to actually look at them and ask our two illustrious authors all about whatever it is that you lovely watchers would like to know. This is kind of fun because both of the authors that I have tonight wrote sci-fi kind of pieces. And I think instead of asking questions right now, I'm going to have you guys read. I assume about 5 minutes apiece. Sounds good. Something from this awesome anthology of Coffee Hot. First person to raise their hand that I see in my lower windows here gets to read first. Neither. Somebody volunteered.
I'll be that nerd. It's cool.
All right.
I'll be that nerd.
Please read to us.
All right. So this is the beginning of my story, Flavor Profile of a Smuggler. I saw her long before she saw me. She was tall, willowy, hair an orange sort of red, a mass of curls that reached halfway down her back. She swayed with movements of the station that I hadn't noticed in 20 years. Her eyes passed over me without any sign of notice. Silly smuggler. She should have identified me before she even stepped into the cafe. To be fair, she looked as wet behind the ears as they come at this job, and she was probably looking for someone with blue skin and a Fed star worn right on their lapel. It wouldn't occur to a newbie to look for a Terran, and one with brown skin and braids to her shoulders at that. I watched her as I lifted my cup of coffee to my lips. I told myself it was fine, just like the stuff I remembered from Earth Prime when I was a little kid. Hadn't worked yet. It had to modify the genetics of the plant quite a lot to get it to grow on the farm worlds we'd terraformed. Something about the soil needs or the air quality. Technically, the two plants tasted exactly the same, but the coffee had always lacked something to me. Maybe it was the romance of childhood. I drunk proper café in my grandma's kitchen in New Orleans. It had been paired with homemade beignets and mellowed out with pure cream. And it had been made by grandma. Nothing else was going to measure up to it. The experts assured me that that was the only reason that I and the couple other billion people who had long since stopped being able to afford real coffee from Earth Prime didn't like its cousin. I turned my attention back to the girl. She looked to be in her 20s, so at least she was old enough to be legally off-planet. That would avoid an hour's paperwork at least. She looked clean. Her hair was pulled back from her face, and her clothing, while typical leather and denim outlaw wear, looked like it was fresh and new. Odds were good that a quick scan would find her ID in the system for me, no drama. This was going to be an easy nab and would cement my new position with the Niamato, the blue-skinned tentacle aliens who owned this station. They'd decided that having a Terran security force would be good for business. I needed the money if I was ever going to get back down to the planet and reopen Grandmare's little cafe. I watched her, and I waited for her to do something that would confirm that I was right about her intentions. For all that the way she studied the crowd and the cafe seemed fresh and new, her stance was professional and careful. I watched her survey the staff and the bar, and when she finally chose a seat, it was in the section served by a woman that I too would have judged as sympathetic to her cause. As she walked across the floor, she put a little extra sachet into her walk. I didn't mind that, to tell the truth and shame the devil. She was smooth with her hands. She passed her credit to the server along with a slim note that I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been specifically looking for it. The server took it without looking down. Interesting, that was something I'd have to look into later. Most people would check to see what was in their hand on reflex. The server passed the notice to Garrel, who opened it, glanced down at it, and then met my gaze. The sharp little nod he gave me was all I was waiting for. Unfortunately, she was looking for it too, and she hit her feet at the same time that I did. She was fast, hitting full speed by the time she got to the door, and she had a wingman I hadn't noticed, drag it, who stumbled in front of me, slowing me down just long enough that I wasn't sure which way she went outside the bar. I pushed the stumbler out of my way and rushed out the door. I looked left, right, center. Didn't see her anywhere. The ring was busy, but I didn't see a break in the flow of the crowd. I cursed out loud and turned to go back inside the cafe and see what Garrel had to say for himself. Ta-da!
So cool.
Thank you.
I love the space station. It's so neat. And the way that you put all of those different aliens together.
Thank you. It was kind of a process. I remember going on Facebook and being like, okay, give me alien concepts, people, because all I could think of were just sort of like the really typical Star Trek stuff. And someone's like, they need tentacles. And someone else is like, I want them to be blue. And so I just worked in as many little things as I could. So I could be like, yeah, that thing you requested is totally in the story. Fun.
Way to sort of make it easier on yourself and harder at the same time, I guess.
It is fun to me to kind of crowdsource those sorts of ideas when I can. I found, it kind of increases engagement and blah, 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 but it's fun to give people that opportunity. And I have a lot of friends who really like reading and really like writing but don't consider themselves writers. And they really seem to enjoy the idea of like, hey, I created this little tiny thing that was really important.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's fun.
Very cool.
Right, and now for something similar and yet rather different, I'm going to scooch us over to Greer, who will now read from, his name was Pumpkin Spice, best title ever. I love it.
Glad you enjoy it. All right.
I love everything, you can tell. It's my anthology, right?
Makes you a good editor. Okay, so he was on the counters when there was a pounding on the door, rattling the frame. Turner looked up from behind the order counter, blowing his dirty blonde bangs out of the way to get a clear view. A man, silhouetted by streetlights, stood at the door of the coffee shop, dripping wet from the rain that pounded down outside. Turner set down the rag and got out his keys, unlocking the door from the inside. The man pushed himself inside as soon as the door was open, and Turner shoved the door closed behind him and locked it up again. Turner looked him up and down. The man was about 6 feet tall, brawny and dark-skinned, with jet-black, short-cut, natural hair, and a chiseled jaw Turner wanted to rock climb on. Just like the image he'd been sent over the agency's emergency frequencies. He pulled it up on his brain-threaded computer, BEC-COM for short, to double-check, the image floating in his field of view, all thanks to a feed directly to his optic nerve. Perfect visual match. Now for the traditional test. We're closed, Turner said, starting the script. If the man responded correctly, this was his guy. If not, well, hopefully he could just shoo him out into the street. The other options were messy. The man looked at him for a second and grunted. I know, but I heard from my cousin you were the best cup of coffee near the port, and I had to get some. So far, so good. That's true, Turner said. Do you know what the secret ingredient is? Nutmeg, with a dash of cardamom. Turner made a face. Does that sound gross to you? That sounds gross to me. The big man chuckled. Yeah, it kind of does. Confirm code name for me, please. Turner blushed. Apple turnover. Confirm your code name, please. Pumpkin Spice, the big man said. It matched the dossier Turner had pulled up, and they both visibly relaxed. I was told this place can act as an agency safe house. I need to wait out the night. A ship's coming into dock in the morning to get me off the planet. You heard right. We've got a cotton supplies in the back room. Of course, I'll stick around tonight to watch your back. What did you do to need to ditch off so quickly? Turner said. Got caught in the depths of a high-security government facility, putting tabs on their data links. Turner smiled. Yeah, that'll do it. Good job getting out. You being pursued? Spice looked nervous. Maybe. Almost definitely. And that's where I'm going to stop.
All right. So how did you come up with all of those fun code names?
I named the character Turner, and Turnover just sort of spun out from that really easily. And then Pumpkin Spice was core to the original idea. Like, I kind of came up with the title and then spun it out from there.
Because it's pumpkin spice everything these days. But like, it was pumpkin spice everything when it was the middle of autumn, I suppose.
Yeah. Back when I was originally pitched this, pumpkin spice was on everything. So it only made sense.
What else could be pumpkin spice flavor, right?
Well,
that
there's
is
one
my
of those
next
in the
question.
story. Yeah. So your next question is, what else could be pumpkin spice flavor?
Yes.
Well, the joke going around on the internet was that there could be pumpkin spice condoms, which does make an appearance in part of the story.
Tasty.
I keep being surprised no one has done I keep being surprised no one's done pumpkin spice candy. That seems like a no-brainer, but
Yeah.
pumpkin spice erasers for when you're bored in class.
Oh, I want that.
I don't know. Yeah, me too.
Sorry, I keep checking my phone. There's somebody else who's like, oh, I could totally join, but no, I can't. Because authors are all delinquents and you all get in late on your deadlines. Except you two. You two made it. You win points.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we trade those in for free coffee?
Oh, if only, right? Here, have some free coffee.
That would be amazing.
Trade your good author points.
I approve of coffee at all times.
Yes. Who doesn't? So, approving of coffee, and this being a science fiction fantasy erotica anthology, what makes coffee or the coffee shop it is in sexy?
I think for me, a lot of it is around the exchange of ideas. That you were talking about when we were first starting, is that intellectual experience, which is funny because the story I wrote has zero intellectual component. It's not what's going on for these two ladies. But there's something about the smell that's very deep and complex and engages, I think, a lot of senses and a lot of memories for people. That for me is a big part of why it's like, coffee shops, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, what do you think, Greer?
Well, for me, so coffee shops are sexy because, I mean, I find them to be very kind of intimate spaces. They're very kind of warm and cozy. You tend to end up seated across very small tables from the people you're with. And so it's really easy to spin that out and that kind of very close atmosphere into a sexy situation, or at least a romantic situation that can then be very sexy. And also just, at least the coffee shop that I spend a lot of time in has a bunch of kind of nooks and crannies, and I feel like you get a sense of privacy in a coffee shop you don't get in a lot of other spaces. Like bars tend to be very open in their layout. You can see everyone from everywhere. And coffee shop seems more suited to the intimate nook.
Ooh, the intimate nook. There's a phrase.
Yeah.
So you were saying earlier that you sort of have some personal connections to your story just because it's so trendy. Do you have any other personal connection that you could think of with your characters or your plot?
So personal connection with the characters, I mean, it's not specific to either of them, but their dynamic is one that I really like between people. Like, I like the idea of having erotica characters that feel like they can have a relationship future outside of the erotica. And so that personal taste guides some of that. As far as personal connections to the setting, the layout of the coffee shop is actually based on a coffee shop that I used to go to almost every day while I was growing up. They will remain nameless because I have no doubt that would be kind of embarrassing. But it meant that I knew where everything was and could place everything pretty well, which actually helped a lot when I was doing the movement of the story.
That's smart. Steal someone else's layout. I like it.
Yeah, it worked really well.
How about you, Rebecca? Personal connections to your story?
Not directly. I identify as bisexual, and the characters are obviously, well, they're two women who have a romantic and sexual connection. I never specifically laid out whether they were lesbians or bi or whatever. But I'm not from New Orleans, and I don't live on a space station, so not in those ways. I'm not a smuggler. Just in case anyone watching was concerned, no. I spend a really inordinate amount of time in coffee shops. There is one line in the story that actually, when I wrote it, was a super funny, mild inside joke and had no clue that the X-Files was about to be relaunched. There's a line with one of the characters who looks at the other and as she's taking off her shirt and says, "Keep going, Fed woman." And it was 100% a ripoff of an X-Files episode. And I thought nobody would get it except for like 2 X-Files geeks who would laugh and move on. And now everyone is like, oh my God, the X-Files. So that's sort of entertaining. It makes me feel very timely, even though it was not at all intentional.
Well done, being timely.
Thank you.
Unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you spend an inordinate amount of time in coffee shops. Would you say that coffee or coffee shops are an important part of your life?
Less now, because I have 2 small children and somehow they won't sit still for hours at a time while I drink really large cups of coffee. Definitely, though, part of my history as a writer and part of my personal history of just, you know, there was something about a coffee shop, especially when I was younger, where I felt like I could go in with a notebook and a pen and just sit there for a couple hours and really relax, and it felt freer than any other place I ever found myself.
What about you, Greer?
Well, I do spend a lot of time in coffee shops, mostly just because I find them really conducive to working. It's like I tend to go there to relax when I'm hanging out with my friends, so it's kind of nice to be back in that familiar, relaxing space. And also be out of my apartment and just like have a focused area to work on that's still a comfortable place to go to, unlike going to, say, like a public library. I'm rarely in it, and I find them to be kind of intense workspaces. But coffee shops are just a little more casual, and I think that helps the creativity a lot. Yeah.
Neat.
And there's also like 3 of them in my neighborhood that I like going to, so it's really easy to find one I want to go to on any given day.
Oh, I suppose I should ask the obligatory question, since you have a regular coffee shop. Do you have an obsession with any of your baristas?
I do not. Some of them are very cute, but I have no particular obsession with any of them.
How about you, Rebecca? Barista obsessions?
I agree that obsession would be a very strong word. There are definitely a couple of people who make a much better mocha breve than others, but I would not want to identify them publicly.
There's always somebody who makes a really good mocha or a really good version of something, and you see them working, and you think, today, I know what I am ordering.
Yep.
All right, so we do not have any questions from the peanut gallery, as it turns out, and I am out of deep and insightful questions, if I had any to begin with. How about you guys? Do you have deep and insightful questions? Should I talk some more about other people's stories? It was funny, you mentioned, by the way, Rebecca, about people are asking you, oh, you should do tentacles, I want tentacles. I had a lot of fun. There is, in fact, one tentacle porn story in the Coffee Hot anthology. Because how do you make it be tentacle porn and in a coffee shop? You may wonder. You will have to read the anthology to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm quite pleased with that. So it's kind of got a lot. There's a whole gamut of different stories in here, including there's steampunk and some fantasy stuff. There are the were-civets who do their own version of Kopi Luwak. Yes, like werewolves.
There's the bikini coffee stands. Those were particularly enjoyable.
Yeah, I was hoping that Owen, who wrote the bikini coffee stands with the main character who wears a tuxedo, would be able to make it this evening. But it looks like that is not going to happen. So I don't know. Would anybody else like to suggest some super exciting questions that I can throw out here? Peanut Gallery?
I have one.
Go for it, Greer.
I have one. Well, it's not too insightful because it's a repeat of your question, but you didn't answer it. Victoria, do you have an obsession with any baristas?
Oh, no! Don't ask me this. I do not, at the moment, have an obsession with any baristas. I feel like I have to be really specific about that. It's the at the moment there is no obsession with any baristas. But there have definitely been obsessions in the past, which is kind of anthology, right? Like, everybody at some point at least gets a crush on their barista or on somebody who's always in their coffee shop, and you just think, oh, if only. Mm-hmm. If only while they made me this perfect drink, they would also make other things perfect in my life. Blink, blink.
True.
And I don't think I've ever dated one of my baristas, or manage to get past the, gentle and sweet customer who flirts because she flirts with everybody when she goes to the coffee shop. But yes, I wish that some of my obsessions were to go places, or possibly I don't wish it anymore, right? So probably for the best. They can continue to make good coffee, and I can continue to be quiet and adorable. I'm going to call myself adorable and just sit there in the cafe. 'Cause that's all you can do, right, when you're obsessed with the barista. You just sit there and you're like, if I am cuter and more adorable, the barista will come over and talk to me. Or give me an extra shot for free, but I'd like it to be decaf, please. I'm super excited. I was just wrapping this up, and then hello and welcome to Owen Franks, who I'm going to introduce to everyone here. Owen James Franks is the author of And Friday is Formal Day, which we were just discussing about the character who wears the tuxedo. Hey, Owen, you want to say hi?
Hello. Yes. Afraid I'm not in a tuxedo today. I went with the
No tuxedos.
shirt.
So you missed it. I forced everybody else to talk about their favorite coffee and what obsessions they have with which baristas that they know. So if you would like to talk about those things, Owen, you are more than welcome. And if you would like to do an impromptu reading from And Friday is Formal Day, you are welcome to do that too.
Okay, sure. Actually, I've got the reading set because I did actually plan to join this.
Smart man.
Okay, do you want the reading or the coffee beverage first?
Oh, coffee beverage for sure.
Okay. I have a bad habit of basically every morning I drive to work, it's a 12-ounce double shot mocha. No comments on what exactly the barista who's usually serving it is wearing. Let's leave it at that. Hey, I had to do research for this story. I drive by a whole bunch of bikini barista stands on my way to work, whichever commute route I take, and I don't know, this just kind of occurred to me. So, all right. So yeah, I'll do a reading. The idea is there's two competing stands. One's a typical bikini barista stand, and the other, which my wife and I have actually talked about, is, the women are really underserved at these bikini barista stands. There should really be, something for the ladies to enjoy. So this comes from the perspective of a guy who works at the equivalent for the ladies. All right. My first customer arrives just a couple minutes after the stand is open. It starts as a trickle, mostly career women headed into work early and wanting a little side of beefcake to hand them their morning latte. I smile, make cheerful conversation about the weather about 20 times an hour, and rake in some decent tips. Across the way, Amber's doing the same thing for her mostly male customers. The commute rush starts to taper off around 8 a.m., to be replaced by the school drop-off crowd. I'm always glad when summer vacation is over, because a lot of my best tippers are bored soccer moms who've just dropped 2 or 3 kids off at school and want to taste a fantasy or a hint of danger, plus a triple caramel soy macchiato, before they head home for the morning. Amber gets her share of soccer dads, too, but not nearly as many. Then again, she's busier during peak commute hours, so I guess it evens out. By 10 a.m., I can finally catch my breath. The car's slowed at just a few per hour, and I can start cleaning up and getting the stand ready for the afternoon guy. Except, damn it, that flaky twerp just texted me that he's sick and not coming in. I'll just bet he's sick. Not that I'll complain too much about picking up extra hours, but something tells me that Gabby, the stand's owner, is going to be hiring again soon, especially since I have to message her that I'll be closing again tonight and not Blake. This is a slow time for both my stand and Sexy Devils across the road. It's the occasional car rolling through, usually someone with a day off from work, or else just passing through town and curious about the whole bikini barista scene we have passing through the Northwest. Most curious ones usually over at Amber's window, but I get the occasional dude who either made a really embarrassing mistake or totally not a mistake at all. I have a few regulars who swing by too. Most of them I know by name, and half the time have a drink ready for them before the car even rolls up. There's always a few customers trying to get my attention, and I'm happy to encourage a little flirting. It's not for nothing my tip jar says just the tip on it. I take a break at one, throw my raincoat on, and walk around the outside of the stand, just making sure no one's thrown a bag of trash where I can't see it, missed the tip jar and dropped money on the ground, or, whatever. Amber's got a customer again, two dudes in a lifted Brodozer pickup truck. I pause and take a closer look at the truck. Amber mentioned before that for some reason guys with big, lifted pickups seem to be the ones most likely to cause her problems, and judging by what I can see through her window, this one takes the cake. Her arms are moving, she looks like she's yelling, and I'm pretty sure her face is turning an alarming shade of red. Whatever Bubba asked her to do, she is not happy, and he's not backing down. And that's when the pistol comes out the driver's window of the truck. I do a double take and realize that Bro 2 has a gun as well, and that they're both pointed at Amber's direction. I'm as far from the door to my stand as I can get, and the flat crack of several pistol shots reaches my ears before I can even get back inside. I'm fumbling to pull my phone out of my bag when I hear more shots, much louder this time, like someone opened up with a shotgun or something. And that's a good place to stop.
That is packed with so much action and voice and interesting stuff. And from this beginning, it's really hard to see how that's going to turn into erotica. Do you want to give a little bit of a taste of how it gets there, or just talk about how you brought it there yourself?
Okay, let's... I hadn't really planned on that. Problem is, when I went, I'm going to write an erotica, I went, but I like stuff that explodes, so I had to come up with an excuse for gunfire and explosions while still writing an erotica story. Let's see.
And you managed it. You have gunfire and explosions, and I know that it turns into erotica because I've read the whole thing. And it's lovely.
Okay. All right. Here's a little bit more to just kind of give a taste of where this actually goes differently. Right. My phone is finally out of my bag, but as I'm fumbling to punch my unlock code, there's a final massive explosion, followed by a pair of smaller secondary explosions. I yank open one of the stand's side windows, and it's nothing but chaos. The Brodozer is a smoking wreck. Sexy Devils looks like the big bad wolf blew over a house of sticks. Whatever those guys were trying to do, I'm pretty sure this wasn't it. I don't remember when I went back out the door and started across the street. Lucky for me, traffic basically disappears in the early afternoon, because all I can think about is whether Amber's somehow alive. I can't imagine how she would be, but I have to check anyway. The stand just looks like a giant pile of toothpicks. I'm not even sure where to start when I see movement. There's no way it could be, and yet the movement is followed a few seconds later by bright red painted nails, a hand, then an arm, and then somehow, impossibly, Amber just sort of pulls herself out of the rubble. Her bikini top and bottoms are nothing but charred, tattered fabric, and she brushes them off like they weren't even there. Her devil horns and wings have somehow come through unscathed, and she glances around, flips the bird at the truck, and yells at what's left of her visitors. That's when she sees me, with my jaw drooping to the ground, and my raincoat untied and flapping in the slight breeze. She smiles, and once again, I don't remember crossing the road back to my stand. Can't help but notice that not only is there not a single burn mark on her body, she's even more gorgeous naked than I am.
Ryan, it looks like we've lost you because I can't hear a word from you anymore. That is unfortunate. But I do like that we can see at this point in this story that he's managed to lurk in yet more explosions, but also a naked woman. So who doesn't want explosions and naked women? I don't know. I certainly would want them all. Yeah, do we have yet more questions for one another? No, the peanut gallery still has no questions for us. I think that unless you guys have some cool questions to ask of one another.
No?
No.
I think we're good.
Silence.
I'm afraid I can't think of any.
Sounds from the oranges gallery, I see. Yes, I'm going to tell you guys the oranges gallery and everybody else the peanut gallery. I think this works beautifully. That this makes it the end of our lovely and wonderful Google Hangout, letting everybody know who wants to know a little bit more about the people who are behind the stories in Coffee Hot, the anthology from Circlet Press, all about coffee shop erotica in the science fiction and fantasy kind. If you look down in the notes, I'll have a link to the to the page, right, where you can learn yet more about the anthology from Circlet Press. And I don't know if you guys want to give me some links to your web pages too. I can put those in there so people can learn more about you.
Sure.
All right. Last thoughts from anyone who would like to give one.
Thanks for spending time with us. I hope you enjoy the stories.
Me too. Last thoughts?
Sure. Thanks everyone for watching. You should all go and buy it and read the amazing stories in it and send everyone fan mail, because everyone loves fan mail.
I could not agree more. Read everything.
And authors love reviews, regardless of whether they're good or bad. Thank you for just leaving reviews.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. Have a lovely evening or a lovely rest of your day if you're not watching this at night.